This is no gunshot. Our country preacher.
Hey! What are you doing? What are you doing, Percy? This picture. Huh?
I'm sorry, Doc. Bad fortune has to be taken out on you, but maybe you don't know who I am.
In 1873, Jake woke up in the middle of New Mexico with no clue who he was or how he got there. His stomach ached from a strange wound, and on the ground, next to him, lay a photograph of a woman he didn't recognize. On his wrist, there was an odd-looking metal bracelet. No matter how hard he tried, even smashing it with a rock wouldn't come off. Before he could make sense of anything, 3 cowboys showed up, mistaking him for a wanted man. They tried to take him in, but Jake wasn't about to go down easy. In a quick, instinctive fight, he took all 3 out in seconds. After grabbing some of their clothes, cash, and a gun, Jake took one of their horses and rode into town, with the cowboy's loyal dog tagging along. The town was a sorry sight, nearly abandoned, with the people left behind looking hopeless. Searching for help with his injury, Jake slipped into what looked like an empty house, only to find himself at gunpoint. The man holding the weapon was Preacher Meacham. Once Meacham realized Jake had no memory of who he was and clearly needed medical help, he put the gun away and tended to Jake's wound. Oddly enough, it looked like it had been burned shut instead of cut or stitched. As they talked, Meacham explained that the town had once been a mining hub, but when the gold ran out, so did most of the people. Their conversation was interrupted by gunfire. Outside, Percy, a rich troublemaker whose father basically owned the town, was causing chaos again.
Hey!
The local bartender, known as Doc, confronted him for being a useless freeloader. Doc's wife, Maria, tried to step in and stop things from escalating, but Percy was already riled up.
Huh?
He was about to hit Doc when Meacham got involved, trying to defuse the situation. Instead of backing down, Percy mockingly asked the townspeople to donate money to compensate Doc.
Good people in the hat.
Jake wasn't having any of it. When he refused to play along, Percy got aggressive, and Jake decked him with a single punch.
I am.
That caught the attention of Ella, a woman who had been quietly watching. Furious, Percy fired his gun as a warning, but he ended up accidentally shooting a man. That was enough for Sheriff Taggart to step in and arrest him. Percy's father had a lot of power, and Nat, a Native American working for him, warned Taggart that arresting Percy would have serious consequences. But Taggart didn't have a choice. Percy had shot one of his own deputies, and that meant he had to be handed over to the federal marshal. Meanwhile, miles away, 3 cattle herders were watching over their livestock when something fell from the sky, exploding in a bright light. Only one of them survived by sheer luck. He had stepped away to relieve himself and missed the full blast.
No.
Back in town, as Taggart locked Percy up, he came across a wanted poster with Jake's face on it. Jake had no idea he was a fugitive, but his past was catching up fast. When he stopped by a saloon, Ella approached him, clearly curious about his bracelet. Before he could answer her questions, Taggart and his men barged in, ready to arrest him. Jake took them all down in seconds, but just as he was about to take on Taggart himself, the sheriff's grandson, Emmett, ran in, stopping the fight from escalating. Right then, Ella struck Jake on the head, knocking him out cold. As he lost consciousness, flashes of memories flooded his mind. Alice, the woman from the photograph, an old house. When he woke up, he was in a jail cell with Percy, who wouldn't stop talking. Annoyed, Jake knocked him out with a single punch. Meanwhile, Percy's father, Colonel Dollarhide, was questioning the only survivor from the explosion. The man babbled about lights and something attacking, but Dollarhide wasn't buying it. He was more concerned about his missing cattle. Before he could press the man further, Nat arrived with news his son had been arrested and Jake was in town. That got Dollarhide moving. As Taggart prepared to take Jake to the marshal, he listed off the crimes Jake was accused of.
Tell me what I'm charged with.
arson, assault, robbery, and even murder, specifically of Alice.
Murder.
That last charge caught Jake off guard. He didn't remember much, but something told him he had loved her. While being transported with Percy, Ella approached Jake again, apologizing for knocking him out, but insisting she had her reasons for stopping him from escaping.
Have to, Emmett.
Meanwhile, Emmett was devastated to see his grandfather leaving, since he was the only family he had left. Just as the convoy was about to leave, Dollarhide and his men stormed in, demanding Percy's release and accusing Jake of stealing his gold.
Give me a wrist.
Things were about to get ugly when something strange happened. Lights appeared in the sky. Jake's bracelets started beeping. The lights got closer, revealing themselves as alien ships.
Yeah, I see him.
The town erupted into chaos as the ships fired, setting buildings ablaze and sending horses into a frenzy. People ran for cover, but the aliens weren't just destroying things. They were abducting people too. Taggart and Maria were taken before anyone could react. Ella rushed to save Emmett, while Jake and Percy's transport was thrown off course. Trapped inside the wreckage, Jake had no choice but to break Percy's finger to free him from the cuffs. Before they could escape, Jake's bracelet suddenly activated, firing a powerful energy beam that blasted the door open. Percy was too scared to move, and before he could run, the aliens snatched him away. Jake, however, managed to shoot down one of the ships, forcing the rest to retreat. Cautiously, Jake and Dollarhide approached the downed craft, but it was empty. The townspeople, terrified and confused, whispered about demons. A sudden scream pulled everyone's attention toward a house where someone had just fought off one of the creatures. Nat spotted tracks and insisted they needed to follow them. Dollarhide agreed, but wanted Jake to come along because of the bracelet. Jake refused, so Dollarhide punched him. Jake hit back just as hard and then left. The next morning, Jake realized Ella was trailing him. He confronted her, demanding answers. She admitted that the aliens had taken her people too, and she had been searching for them ever since. She suggested they work together, but Jake turned her down and walked away. Eventually, Jake found the house from his visions. The memories hit him all at once. Him and Alice, their life together, her disapproval of the stolen gold, and then the horrifying moment when a blinding light ripped through the ceiling, snatching both Alice and the gold. It wasn't a dream. It had happened, and now he needed to get her back. Meanwhile, Dollarhide gathered his team. Doc, Ella, Emmett, and the town's loyal dog joined him. They ran into Jake, who, after reliving his memories, decided to help. That night, they discovered something impossible, a massive upside-down alien ship in the middle of the desert. With no rivers or lakes nearby, it made no sense. As a storm rolled in, they took shelter inside. Nat wondered if they should alert the military, but Dollarhide refused, still bitter from his time as a colonel. As the night wore on, Doc practiced shooting with Meacham, while Jake went to clean his wound. Ella followed, telling him his memories were important. Suddenly, Jake's bracelet blinked and rats scattered. The aliens were back. They attacked fast, taking down several men in the shadows. Emmett, hearing the dog bark, went to check, only to come face to face with one of the creatures. Frozen with fear, he dropped the knife Dollarhide had given him. The alien lunged, but Meacham appeared, firing at it. The bullets did nothing. The creature attacked Meacham, and even Jake's gun was useless. But when Jake used the bracelet, the alien fled. Jake rushed to Meacham's side, but it was too late. The preacher died in his arms, and with him, the last bit of calm before the storm that was about to hit. The next morning, EMT wakes up and realizes the dog is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Dollarhide is left with just a handful of men, including Jake and Document. Before heading off, Meacham shares a few final words before parting ways, and the group continues tracking the alien. As they move, Dollarhide shares a story with EMT about the first time he ever took a life, warning him that hesitation in a fight can be deadly. Later, Nat spots fresh footprints leading toward the canyon. The group picks up the pace, but runs into a gang of cowboys blocking their path. To their surprise, the outlaws lower their weapons as soon as they recognize Jake as their former leader, remembering how they had helped him pull off a gold heist. Jake plays along, pretending he remembers them, and convinces them to take the group to their camp, now controlled by Dolan. Jake tries to rally his old crew to join him, but Dolan stops him, revealing the gang's bitterness toward him for abandoning them to chase gold for a woman. As they press Jake to reveal where he hid the gold, his bracelet suddenly activates, cutting their interrogation short. Jake uses it to take out Dolan and force the rest of the gang to drop their weapons, allowing his group to escape. The gang gives chase, but just as they reach an open area, alien ships swoop down and attack, throwing everything into chaos. One of the ships grabs Ella, and Jake takes off on horseback, following it. He manages to leap onto the ship and uses his bracelet to take it down, sending it crashing into a river. Jake and Ella emerge from the wreckage, but the alien pilot isn't done yet. It wounds Ella before Jake finally manages to kill it. Ella is badly hurt, and Jake rips a piece of her clothing to stop the bleeding before carrying her back to the group. Doc checks her over, but it's too late. Ella is gone. Before anyone can fully process what just happened, a group of Chiricahua Apache warriors surround them and take them prisoner. At their camp, an Apache warrior cremates Ella's body while Chief Black Knife confronts the captives. Through Gat's translation, he blames the cowboys for attracting the aliens to their land. The situation gets heated until the bonfire suddenly flares up, and, to everyone's shock, Ella steps out, completely unharmed. Ella reveals she had tricked everyone. She isn't human, but an alien herself, taking on a human form as a disguise while she healed. She explains that she comes from a different planet, one that was destroyed by the same aliens currently invading Earth. These creatures are here for gold, which is rare and valuable to them, and they're abducting people to study their weaknesses. If they send this information back to their home world, a much larger invasion will follow. Hearing this, Black Knife and his warriors prepare for battle, and Ella says they can find the aliens if Jake can remember where they are. The Apaches give him a special drink to help him recall, triggering vivid memories of being in the alien ship's lab. He remembers the creatures experimenting on Ella first, which led to her death, before turning their attention to him. They used a strange tool that left his wound, and in his panic, he accidentally activated the bracelet left behind by an alien, which attached itself to him. He then escaped and realized the ship was hidden within a network of caves in the canyon. The next day, the group heads toward the location, with Ella explaining that the mothership is mining gold and the aliens are hiding inside. Smaller ships constantly fly in and out of the structure. They decide to use the caves to launch a surprise attack. Dollarhide wants to lure the aliens out, so Jake can sneak inside, but Black Knife disagrees, preferring to fight on his own terms. Meanwhile, Jake seeks out his old gang, who are arguing over their tiny stash of gold. While they debate running from the aliens, Jake convinces them to fight instead, explaining that the creatures won't stop hunting them down. He lays out a plan to reclaim the gold from the canyon. That explains to Black Knife how Dollarhide once showed him kindness after the war, earning the former colonel's unexpected gratitude. Black Knife questions whether Dollarhide can actually lead such a small force in a battle, but his doubts disappear when Jake arrives with his gang, uniting everyone for the fight ahead. That night, they all prepare, and the Apaches officially welcome Nat back into the tribe. Ella tells Jake she won't be staying after this is over, and in response, he kisses her. At dawn, the group hides while Jake and a few others climb the mothership to plant explosives at the top before sneaking back down. The plan works, forcing the aliens to emerge, and the battle begins. EMT and the dog stand guard while Doc tends to the wounded, and Jake and Ella head into the cave system. The fight is brutal, with heavy losses on both sides. Dollarhide gets thrown from his horse, and when an alien moves to finish him off, Nat steps in but is quickly overpowered. Despite Dollarhide's efforts to save him, Nat is mortally wounded. It takes a well-placed shot from Doc to finally bring the alien down. Before dying, Nat expresses his respect for Dollarhide, who, in turn, acknowledges him as a son. Inside the caves, Jake and Ella find a mining operation and follow the tunnels deeper, discovering the captives trapped in a blinding light. Ella destroys it, breaking the aliens' hold on them, while Jake takes down the creatures guarding them. More aliens attack, forcing Jake to hold them off at the tunnel entrance while Ella leads the prisoners to safety. Instead of escaping, Ella ventures further inside, and Jake follows. Outside, the battle rages on. EMT, initially scared, finds his courage and stabs an alien attacking him. Meanwhile, Jake finds Ella at the heart of the mothership, determined to destroy it by detonating the bracelet. Jake tries to remove it himself, but it's stuck. Ella kisses him, and the bracelet finally falls off. Instead of simply leaving it behind, she takes it deeper into the ship, knowing it will cost her life. Jake wants to stop her, but aliens force him to retreat into another chamber. Above ground, EMT spots the freed captives escaping the cave and excitedly calls out. Seeing that Jake and Ella are still inside, Dollarhide enters the cave to help. An alien grabs Jake and drags him back toward the lab, but Dollarhide intervenes, giving Jake a chance to dump a vat of molten gold onto the creature, killing it. As the battle nears its end, the mothership starts to take off, but Ella activates the bracelet, triggering a massive explosion that destroys it mid-air. With the aliens finally defeated, the survivors regroup and reunite with their loved ones. EMT finds Taggart, Doc embraces Maria, and Dollarhide sees Percy safe and sound. Later, Jake returns to his old home to pay his respects to Alice before heading back to town. Thanks to the gold recovered from the alien ship, the town is thriving, and the upcoming railroad promises prosperity. Percy, now a changed man, has become Dollarhide's business partner. Surprisingly, Jake decides to stay, and Dollarhide, along with Taggart and the dog, welcomes him back. Knowing he's a wanted man, they assure him they'll cover for him, giving him the chance to start fresh.